Grenades are a vital part of any FPS game and Planetside is no exception. Its server structure and way of connecting players with each other does make for some interesting quirks though. I want to explore how they work in detail and go over the most interesting facts about grenades that you might not know about. But first, let's get some basics out of the way. Every grenade will originate in front of you and slightly above your crosshair. It becomes a tangible object in the world at the end of your throwing animation, which is roughly 50 frames long, and can get blocked by players, but also block bullets or other throwable objects during that time. From here the fuse time for most grenades is 3 seconds plus server latency, and you'll be looking at roughly 4 seconds from press of the G button to a hit marker appearing on your screen. Grenades do have a cone of fire, so throwing them while jumping is not something you want to do. They also don't have any inherent momentum, so throwing them while moving in any way won't have any impact on their trajectory. Once a grenade hits the ground, it loses a whole lot of momentum. This is very useful for bouncing them to land right behind a fence, but when bouncing them on a wall or any other vertical surface, they will keep their momentum as is usual. Let's take a closer look at the grenade throwing process from here. I'll divide it into 3 parts: the animation phase, the projectile phase, and the explosion phase. The animation phase is pretty simple. As I said, it's 50 frames from the press of the G button to when the grenades get manifested as an object, which is when the red grenade indicator appears. This process happens entirely on the client of whoever is throwing the grenade, so there's no inconsistencies. You can even use the length of this animation to throw grenades without exposing yourself as much by throwing a little bit before stepping out of cover. In the projectile phase, the grenade becomes an object that is essentially independent of the client that has thrown the grenade. The server has to now calculate when the grenade is supposed to explode, leading to some kind of delay past the usual fuse time on when exactly that happens. I couldn't find any repeatable pattern while testing that delay, which is why I'm assuming that it's based on server performance and server load at that particular time. Long-time players will remember times when grenades would take unusually long to explode, coinciding with server performance being particularly bad, which would support that theory. The explosion phase is when damage gets dealt to the player getting hit by the grenade. You would think that this is based on server latency of that particular player, but based on my testing this is not the case. What I'm exactly counting here are the milliseconds between the disappearance of the grenade indicator, or appearance of the hit marker, and the moment damage is visibly taken on the HUD. Before everything else though, the heavy overshield will always take damage instantly. I have no idea why, but this seems like another strong indicator that server latency isn't a factor here. Now for the numbers. I tested these timings on Emerald and Cobalt, both in empty bases. On Emerald it took on average between 17 and 50 milliseconds for the damage to come in. On Cobalt these times averaged somewhere around 80 to 120 milliseconds. So the grenade damage seems to be once again based on server performance. And if anyone had conspiracy theories about EU servers being worse off than Emerald, then this is probably the most confirmation you'll get for it. Now for the part that some of you might have been waiting for, grenade indicators. First and foremost, actual invisible grenade indicators don't exist. I've never seen any proof of a grenade existing without an indicator on it, and I was not able to make it happen in testing. But there are some grave issues with them. For one, the opacity goes down by a lot when you're aiming down sights. This makes it very easy to miss them when you're already focused on shooting other players. Just to demonstrate how opaque it gets, I put a normal grenade indicator next to one on ADS and turned down the opacity. They started looking the same at about 3%, which is ludicrously low. The indicator will also disappear behind UI elements, which is as close as it gets to invisible. Getting rid of that opacity and putting the grenade indicator above UI elements would greatly decrease frustrating moments. Surely grenade indicators are important enough to distract you in ADS a little bit. Getting to bugs that do actually exist, I'm sure you've seen grenades do damage through spawn shields. Not only do they pass through those, grenades can do damage through pretty much any thin surface in the game. The key here is that the grenade has to be right up against that surface. I'm assuming there's some kind of overlap of hitboxes that lets the explosion damage go through the wall. Unfortunately, without any kind of dev tool, I can't confirm anything other than how to replicate it. I've made this little graphic on what I think is happening here. The hitbox that determines who actually gets damaged by the grenade seems to be a little bigger than the physical grenade object itself. So when the grenade object and a thin surface are very close to each other, that hitbox will pass through it and treat the wall as non-existent. Another bug that I have absolutely no explanation for is sticky grenades glitching straight through even thicker walls. The only requirement is standing right up against whatever object the grenade is supposed to go through. I don't think this is as exploitable as it seems, but still a pretty major glitch, so please fix. Let's move on to support grenades now. Concussion grenades, for example, have a different effect based on how far you're away from them. We can divide these effects into 4 different states. 0 to 5 meters has the classic full conk effect, blur, slow movement, all that fun stuff. 5 to 7.5 meters darkens your screen and slows your movement and aiming by a middling amount. 7.5 to 10 meters just slightly slows down your movement and aiming, and there does seem to be one more stage at 10 meters where you move just a tiny bit slower. Flash grenades on the other hand also have a range of 10 meters, but there's no scaling. When you get hit by a flash grenade, you will always be blind for 5 entire seconds. Last and actually least, decoy grenades. Probably the most underused item in the entire game, but they do actually have a tiny niche. First of all, decoys show fake red dots on the map and fabricate gunshot sounds using the default carbine of its respective faction. But the grenade is also capable of spotting enemies, including their movement and directions within a distance of 20 meters in a sphere, which lasts for 18 seconds upon being thrown. Now the wiki says that enemies get revealed every 2 seconds through a pulse, but I couldn't properly confirm that. While testing, the enemy would get spotted and removed off the map at seemingly random intervals. So I'm kind of at a loss on how exactly decoy spotting works, or if it even works properly. If anyone has a better understanding of decoy grenades, please tell me in the comments. The 2 things I can confirm about it is that the enemy has to be moving for the decoy to work, and that the line of sight to the grenade does not play a role in it. You can also kill it, since it turns into a spotting device like the darts or motion spotter. Lastly, decoy grenades can distract Spitfire turrets even when they're already targeting you. Unfortunately, the Infiltrator already has a dedicated item slot for a spotting device, so they're kinda redundant. Especially when the EMP grenade exists, being able to halve everyone's HP and turn Spitfires off entirely. If the spotting feature would actually work consistently throughout the supposed entire 20 meters, it could be somewhat worthwhile as an alternative spotting tool, but in this state decoy grenades are just useless. And that's about all I got for quirky grenade mechanics. A little disclaimer here that everything I've presented in this video is based on conclusions from in-game testing combined with my game knowledge. So I don't want to claim any of this as 100% factual. I'm trying to shine a light on more unexplored game mechanics and make some of Planetside's weirder interactions more understandable. If there's any other unusual grenade trivia that I might have missed, feel free to put them in the comments. Until then, I'll see you for the next video.